In the increasingly complex and tense geopolitical landscape of the modern world, wars are no longer confined to land, sea, and air. A new dimension has emerged, one that is invisible, silent, yet immensely powerful: the electromagnetic spectrum. It is here that Russia and NATO are now locked in a growing struggle for dominance, as Russian electronic warfare systems begin to alter the balance of power in ways that few could have predicted a decade ago. The jamming of NATO satellites has become one of the most significant developments in this evolving conflict, revealing that the future of warfare will not be decided only by missiles or troops, but by who controls the frequencies through which modern armies see, hear, and move. Russian advancements in electronic warfare are not new, but the scale and sophistication seen in recent years have taken Western intelligence by surprise. Systems like Krasukha-4, Murmansk-BN, and Tirada-2S have been deployed across strategic locations, from the Arctic to Crimea, from Kaliningrad to the borders of Belarus, forming a vast shield of electronic interference that can jam, deceive, or completely disable enemy communications and satellites. These are not theoretical capabilities. NATO's reconnaissance and communication networks have reportedly suffered severe disruptions, especially in areas close to Russian operational zones. Pilots have described losing GPS signals mid-flight, drones have gone off course, and satellite communications have faltered in crucial moments of coordination. The primary goal of these operations is not necessarily to destroy enemy systems but to blind and confuse them. By distorting signals, Russian EU units can create bubbles of electromagnetic denial, regions where Western technology simply stops working as intended. Within these zones, NATO's satellites can no longer send reliable data, GPS signals become scrambled, and missile guidance systems lose their lock. In a world where military operations depend entirely on digital connectivity, such an ability represents a powerful weapon, one that can render even the most advanced military hardware useless. The evolution of these technologies stems from Russia's long-standing focus on asymmetric warfare. Lacking the vast economic and industrial capacity of NATO, Moscow invested heavily in developing tools that could undermine Western superiority without matching it directly. The idea was simple: rather than outbuilding or outspending the West, outsmart it. This philosophy has given rise to a generation of weapons that fight not with bullets, but with bursts of energy and coded signals. Russian engineers have built systems capable of detecting enemy frequencies, analyzing them in real time, and deploying targeted interference with astonishing precision. Some EU platforms can even simulate friendly signals, tricking enemy sensors into revealing their positions or feeding false information into command systems. The recent intensification of EW activity around the Black Sea and Eastern Europe has raised serious alarm within NATO. Analysts have observed consistent patterns of interference coinciding with Russian military exercises, suggesting a deliberate strategy of testing and showcasing these capabilities. Western experts call it soft escalation, a way for Moscow to demonstrate strength without direct confrontation. The implications, however, are far-reaching. By effectively neutralizing NATO's satellite-based intelligence, Russia can conduct operations under a cloak of electronic invisibility, moving forces or equipment undetected. In modern warfare, where surveillance and data dominance are everything, such an advantage could prove decisive. At the same time, as NATO continued to experience unexplained disruptions in satellite communication, the alliance soon realized that it was facing a new and evolving form of warfare, one that could not be seen or heard, yet had the power to paralyze entire operations. The silent aggression was coming not from missiles or fighter jets but from advanced electronic warfare systems designed by Russia to dominate the electromagnetic spectrum. What began as isolated signal distortions near the Black Sea turned into a coordinated and persistent campaign of jamming that stretched across multiple regions, challenging NATO's technological edge and altering the very nature of modern conflict. Inside secure command centers across Europe, frustration began to grow. Satellite feeds that once provided crystal-clear imagery suddenly flickered with interference. Communication channels between aircraft and ground control cut off without warning. Drones lost their guidance systems and spiraled out of control mid-flight. What confused NATO technicians most was that each time they shifted frequencies or encryption codes, the interference followed almost instantly, as if the jamming systems were anticipating every move. Intelligence analysts later described this as adaptive electronic warfare, a new phase of military technology where Russian systems, powered by artificial intelligence, could learn, adjust, and counter in real time. On the ground, the impact was just as significant. In Eastern Europe and the Baltic regions, NATO exercises were repeatedly disrupted. Tanks with GPS guidance failed to follow routes, precision munitions missed targets, and radar operators saw their screens filled with static noise. Even secure data links between ships in the Black Sea were affected, causing confusion in coordinated maneuvers. Each failure was a reminder that Russia's invisible arsenal had matured to the point of rendering NATO's expensive hardware blind and deaf. Western strategists began to understand that the war of the future would not necessarily be won through firepower, but through mastery of the information environment. The Russians, meanwhile, continued refining their systems with precision and secrecy. In military bases across Murmansk, Kaliningrad, and the Arctic, teams of engineers worked around the clock testing new generations of jammers capable of targeting not just communication satellites but also spy and navigation constellations. The Tirada-2S, for instance, is rumored to have the ability to disable satellites directly from the ground by overloading their communication frequencies, while systems like Krasukha-4 can block airborne radar and AWACS aircraft from detecting targets hundreds of kilometers away. These developments have effectively created what defense experts now call anti-space zones, areas where Western satellites simply cannot operate safely. The psychological effect of these operations has been equally powerful. For decades, NATO has relied on its space-based infrastructure as an unshakable advantage, the ability to see everything, coordinate globally, and respond instantly. Now, that sense of superiority is being eroded. The realization that an adversary can silence satellites or distort navigation signals at will has forced Western planners to rethink every level of their strategy, from troop movement to missile defense. Some even warn that if Russia can perfect the technique of large-scale satellite jamming, it could temporarily blind entire regions, making them invisible to NATO's command structure. Inside Washington and Brussels, emergency meetings became more frequent. The U.S. Space Command, alarmed by repeated interference patterns, began working with private companies like SpaceX to strengthen satellite resilience through rapid frequency hopping and advanced encryption. European partners initiated programs to develop quantum-secured communication links that could, in theory, resist electronic attacks. But these solutions are years away from being fully operational, while Russia's systems are already active and growing stronger with each test. This gap has created a sense of urgency and quiet panic among NATO's defense leadership. For Russia, the strategy is as much about deterrence as it is about dominance. Moscow understands that directly confronting NATO militarily would risk catastrophic escalation, but by proving that it can disable the alliance's technological backbone, it sends a clear message: even the most advanced army is vulnerable if it cannot communicate. This asymmetric advantage allows Russia to exert influence far beyond its borders, using the fear of disruption as a weapon in itself. It is a new kind of power projection, one that operates in silence, without crossing borders, yet changes the behavior of its adversaries. Still, such power comes with immense risks. Experts warn that large-scale satellite interference could easily spiral out of control. Civilian systems that depend on the same frequencies, including navigation for aircraft and shipping, could be affected, leading to global consequences. Moreover, as jamming grows more aggressive, there is a danger that an accidental malfunction or misinterpretation could trigger a retaliatory response. A satellite that suddenly goes dark might be mistaken for a kinetic attack, setting off a chain reaction of escalation no one intends. Despite these warnings, both sides continue to advance. Russia's doctrine of informational superiority drives its relentless development of new EU systems, while NATO invests heavily in countermeasures, shielding technologies, and orbital resilience. The invisible conflict intensifies with every passing month, spreading across land, air, and now the vacuum of space itself. Each side seeks to dominate the unseen battlefield, a silent war where no shot is fired, yet entire armies can be blinded in seconds. In this struggle, the rules of warfare are being rewritten. The electromagnetic spectrum has become the new high ground, and whoever controls it controls the modern world. As Russian engineers perfect their jammers and NATO races to defend its satellites, humanity stands on the threshold of an era where wars may begin, and perhaps end, without a single explosion, fought entirely in the invisible frequencies that connect our planet.